How old were you when the attack on 9/11 happened?
I have to count back. This was 13 years ago? Is that what that is?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I was 30. Hold on. I was 36, I think.
Okay, where were you when the attack happened?
I was on the train on the way to work, on the subway. And when I stepped out of the subway, I was downtown, which is about a 10-minute walk from the attack. So when I stepped out of the train, tell me if this is what you want and I'll stop. So when I stepped out of the train, I noticed everybody looking up in the sky, because from where I was standing you can see the first tower from downtown. So everybody was looking and I saw a smoke and I thought it was just a typical building fire and no big deal. Let me just head to work and get my things done. As soon as I crossed the street, I saw another plane, a huge plane flying so low that I was surprised. I've never seen a plane fly that low in Manhattan before.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like it was right above our heads, and I thought I couldn't tell that it was a commercial jet because you're only seeing the underbelly. So I thought it was flying to go assist with the fire. You know?
Yeah.
I turned away because everybody's staring at the building, at the tower. So I turned away to walk to the building. And as soon as I did, I just heard one sound like this. Boom! And then I saw plane shards flying all over Manhattan. And that's when everybody started crying and screaming and running and saying terrorist attack. And I was so confused because I didn't know anything about the first attack yet. And I was like, uh-oh, everybody needs to calm down. So I went to the office and I heard that a plane had hit the first tower already. And what I just saw was the second plane hitting the second tower. That was even closer because you literally saw, I didn't see it make the impact, but I saw all the plane shards coming down. And that's when all the fun started.
How did this event affect you personally?
Well, in the immediate, first of all, once you realize what was happening, and we're all downtown, we were all terrified and concerned that potentially there's just going to be, it felt like there were just going to be more planes coming potentially, and that this could just be, almost felt like it could be almost like an Armageddon. You just weren't sure. So it's terrifying and it's confusing in the short term, but I think in the long term, besides a fear for a little while, it didn't last for very long. I still have a fear of working in very tall buildings now. I don't want to be in a very high rise.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it taught me that anything about your life can change in an instant. Because my biggest concern when I walked off the train that day was for me to get my meetings done so I could make it to the gym at lunchtime. That was my biggest concern for the day. And within less than 10 minutes, everything changed. Yeah. And your whole life changes. So that's what it taught me, that sometimes right in the middle of the most amazing thing happening, just be careful, enjoy it, because it could just change.
Mm-hmm. What is the most vivid memory about that day?
The most vivid memory I have is what happened after the second plane hit. I went into my office because and our office was a little bit in pandemonium. Some of our clients' offices were in the trade center, so a few of them actually came to our office because they didn't have anywhere else to go. People who didn't go to work that early. Anyway, eventually what happened was within a half of an hour, the first tower came down, and all of Manhattan just started looking like it was under volcanic ash. Then the second tower came down. Who could escape on the ferries that live in Jersey? I couldn't escape because I don't live in New Jersey. I had to stay in our building in the basement, and they gave us oxygen, little, masks to cover our nose. We stayed there, and then eventually I had no way of going home because I lived north of the city. There was no transportation at that time. So I had to walk to Brooklyn with one of my coworkers. So while we were walking to Brooklyn, we had to walk through Lower Manhattan, a few blocks away from the Trade Center, like within probably a square mile of the Trade Center, and it looked exactly like what you would almost think if a volcano erupted and everybody just had to stop immediately and run. Everything, every car, every street corner, all the coffee vendors with selling their donuts. The donuts were sitting there with an inch of ash sitting on top of it. And we found shoes and checks, all the things that blew up from the building. That it looked like a war zone or the aftermath of a volcano. That's actually one of the most vivid memories that I have, because it's just, you can never forget it because it looks nothing. And they're burning buildings all over because with the two towers down, it caused other buildings to go on fire. So you're seeing black smoke, fire, and everything covered in ash. That I won't forget.
What feelings do you relive when you watch videos or read articles about the attack?
I spent a lot of time in the subsequent days and weeks paying attention, as everybody did. And then it got to the point where I reached my saturation point, and now after this much time, I can look back and it makes me remember that day. It makes me remember just how quickly everything changed. It makes me think, like everybody else does, that there was life before 9/11 and life after 9/11. But yeah, the thing that I relive the most sometimes is seeing knowing that there are people who had to jump to their deaths. Lots of people had to jump. So I can only watch that. I can only hear it periodically. I don't want to relive it. It's too raw.
Was there anyone that you know that was directly impacted by the attack?
I worked with somebody a couple of years, about 2 or 3 years later. She's still a friend of mine. I don't see her very often, but she was on the 84th floor of the second tower. So she was in the building she was a survivor, but she had to walk down all 84 floors. And she doesn't like to talk about it very often, but she finally told me about it. And it makes me realize that what I went through is nothing compared to what people went through who were in the building. So she would be somebody good to interview, but yeah.
What do you think changed in the American life after the attack?
Oh, certainly the vigilance, the paranoia. I think we all have a sense of paranoia that we never had before, because when things happen, even when it's not in New York or any large city, that's the first thing we think about. If you watch international news, things happen. The first thing we think about is, was it a terrorist attack? And our expectation has changed, that we almost are like holding our breaths waiting to see if and when something else is going to happen. You know?
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
I was going to say, especially if you live in New York and you're in the subways, they talk about terrorists. You think about all the vulnerable spots in New York City that things could happen, like the subway. You just hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah. In your opinion, what are the lessons learned from what happened?
I don't know if we have any lasting. Well, I mean, the lessons learned are all the things that we just talked about, our expectation and our vigilance. But I think some of the vigilance is good. Some of it is bad, because I think it's made us a little bit more prejudiced. It's fed into America's bias against other people. You know, some of the things that people get attacked because of where they're from.
Yeah.
Those are the bad lessons. Those are the lessons learned, but how we react to them, I don't agree with wholeheartedly. You know, but I do think that we do have to be vigilant, and I think we're still learning our lessons, and I think we're still, as a country, trying to figure out exactly what's the best way to go about, you know, this new reality that we have to live with.
Yeah. What are your feelings towards the way that former President Bush handled the situation?
You trying to get me on the watch list? Well, I certainly do not agree with the war that ensued as a result. You know, I think we had a bit of a big knee-jerk reaction to that. War is never a pretty thing. It's never a good thing, and I think as a result, we've been living in over a decade of war. You know, as a somewhat related at this point. So I don't think I'm not in full agreement with that.
Mm-hmm. What are your feelings towards the killing of Osama bin Laden?
I understand it for what, you know, it's these things are for national security, I guess, and for people's sense of security worldwide. I guess. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not a political analyst, so I'll just leave it to that. You know, let's leave it for the experts to understand what recourse they ought to make.